Stop scrolling. In the next 3 minutes, I am going to show you how a single, controlled act of imagination can begin rearranging your financial reality. Starting now, not someday. This is not motivation, this is instruction. When you understand how imagination creates fact, money stops being something you chase and becomes something that responds. Inspired by the teachings of Neville Goddard, this message will show you how a focused 3-minute visualization, done correctly, can shift you into the state of the millionaire, where wealth flows naturally. Money does not come from effort alone, it comes from identity. The poor man thinks about money. The wealthy man thinks from wealth. Your outer world mirrors your inner state. When you occupy the consciousness of abundance, life has no choice but to reflect it back to you in form. Imagination works instantly when it is focused. 3 minutes of total absorption is more powerful than hours of distracted affirmations. In those 3 minutes, you are not hoping, you are being. The subconscious accepts what feels real, not what takes long. Close your eyes and place yourself inside a short, vivid scene that implies wealth is already yours. See your hands, hear congratulatory words, feel relief and gratitude. Do not watch yourself become rich. Experience that you already are. The secret is not excitement, it is calm certainty. Let the feeling be ordinary, settled, and unquestioned. When wealth feels normal to you internally, the world reorganizes externally to make that normal true. Once the visualization is complete, drop it. Do not look for signs. Do not check the bank balance in doubt. The seed is planted. Interference only delays manifestation. Assume it is done and move on with quiet confidence. You do not repeat the scene to force results. You persist by thinking, choosing, and reacting as the person who already has more than enough. The millionaire mindset becomes your default, and life follows. Money is not a reward for struggle, nor is it a prize reserved for the lucky. It is a reflection of consciousness. This is where most people misunderstand wealth. They believe money lives in jobs, markets, people, or opportunities, but money has never lived there. It lives in the state you occupy. A state is simply a way of being, an identity you consistently return to. The poor state and the wealthy state are not defined by numbers in a bank account, they are defined by assumptions about self. The person who struggles financially is not struggling because the world is cruel. They are struggling because they are faithful to an inner concept of lack. They wake up thinking about money, worrying, planning, fearing, hoping. That very act keeps money at a distance. Awareness placed on absence reproduces absence. This is not punishment, it is law. Consciousness is the only reality, and what you consent to internally must externalize. The wealthy individual, by contrast, does not chase money. They move from a position of inner sufficiency. Even before visible wealth appears, the inner dialogue is different. They assume solutions exist. They expect support. They feel safe making decisions. They are not reckless, they are rooted. That rootedness is the state of wealth, and money simply flows to match it. When you change the state, the flow follows automatically. This is why effort alone never guarantees riches. Two people can work the same hours with the same skills and receive wildly different results. The difference is not intelligence or opportunity, it is identity. One secretly assumes life is hard and money is scarce. The other assumes life is responsive and money is available. Each assumption proves itself faithfully. You do not get into the wealthy state by accumulating money. You accumulate money because you have entered the wealthy state. This reverses everything society has taught you. You do not wait for proof. You do not negotiate with circumstances. You select a state internally and remain loyal to it. As Neville Goddard taught, you do not attract what you want, you express what you are. When you identify as someone who always has enough, your reactions change. Bills no longer trigger panic. Delays no longer feel fatal. You begin to move with an inner knowing that provision is inevitable. This calm expectation is not denial, it is alignment. And alignment is power. Understand this clearly. Poverty and wealth are not conditions, they are attitudes of mind. The outer world is only a screen upon which your inner beliefs are projected. Trying to fix the screen without changing the film never works. That is why visualization is not about seeing money. It is about becoming the person for whom money is normal. The moment you shift from, how will I get money, to money responds to who I am, pressure dissolves. And in that release, things begin to move, opportunities appear, ideas come unforced, help arrives through natural channels, not because you chased them, but because your state summoned them. This is the foundation of everything that follows. If you miss this, techniques become empty rituals. But if you grasp this, if you truly accept that wealth is a state of consciousness, you stop struggling, you stop pleading, you begin assuming. An assumption persisted in hardens into fact. Most people assume that transformation requires time, repetition, and effort, but imagination does not operate on the clock. Imagination operates on acceptance. The moment a state is fully accepted as real, it begins to express itself. This is why 3 minutes, when used correctly, can outweigh years of unfocused desire. Duration has never been the power. Depth has always been the power. The subconscious mind does not reason or argue. It does not analyze whether something is possible or practical. It simply receives impressions and expresses them as experience. What impresses it is not words spoken mechanically or pictures glanced at casually, but feeling, specifically the feeling of reality. When something feels real to you, the subconscious accepts it as fact, and acceptance is instantaneous. Think about fear. A single thought held for seconds can send your body into panic. Your heart races, your breath changes, your chemistry shifts, all from an imagined event that is not physically happening. If imagination can do that in moments, then it can just as easily establish wealth, confidence, and success when deliberately directed. The same law applies. Only the content changes. 3 minutes of complete absorption works because in that window you are no longer divided. Doubt disappears when attention is unified. For those 3 minutes, there is no past and no future, only the present experience of being the one who already has. In that stillness, the subconscious opens and receives without resistance. This is where most people fail. They visualize while secretly watching the clock, wondering if it is working, hoping for signs. That divided attention weakens the act. But when you give yourself fully, when you forget time and lose yourself in the assumption, the act becomes creative. You are no longer imagining for a result, you are imagining from fulfillment. You are not trying to convince the subconscious. You are allowing it to feel what you have decided is true. And once it feels true, repetition becomes unnecessary. A seed does not need to be planted 1,000 times. It needs to be planted once, correctly. The reason 3 minutes is often ideal is because the conscious mind cannot sustain pure focus for much longer without interference. Short, intense sessions prevent mental wandering. They train you to enter the state quickly and exit without strain. This is not willpower, it is surrender to the feeling of already being. When you compress your visualization into a short, vivid act, you are telling the subconscious, this is real now. And the subconscious responds by rearranging perception, behavior, and circumstances accordingly. It influences the choices you make, the tone of your voice, the ideas you notice, and the opportunities you recognize. You do not force action. Inspired action arises naturally. Time delays are not caused by weak imagination, they are caused by divided faith. The moment you accept something as done, time becomes irrelevant. The bridge of events unfolds in ways you could not have planned, often through channels you would never have chosen consciously. This is why you must stop measuring progress by the clock. Measure it by inner shift. If, after 3 minutes, you feel calmer, more assured, more grounded in the assumption of wealth, the act has worked. The world will catch up. It always does. Imagination does not ask how long. It asks only one question: do you believe this now? When the answer is yes, even briefly, creation is set in motion. The most common mistake people make with visualization is that they stand outside their desire and watch it like a movie. They see themselves becoming wealthy, receiving money, or living a different life, but they remain observers. Observation keeps separation alive. Creation only begins when separation ends. To imagine correctly, you must step into the scene and experience it from the inside, as though it is happening now. Imagination is not meant to be a screen you look at, it is a world you enter. When you are inside the scene, you are no longer thinking about wealth, you are thinking from it. This shift is subtle but decisive. The subconscious does not respond to images alone, it responds to perspective. Whose eyes are you seeing through? That answer determines whether the act is creative or merely entertaining. When you close your eyes, do not picture yourself across the room counting money or celebrating success. Instead, place awareness behind your own eyes. Feel your body present in the scene. Notice the weight of your hands, the sound of your environment, the quiet certainty in your chest. The scene must imply that the desire is already fulfilled without explanation or drama. For example, instead of seeing a pile of cash, you might feel the calm satisfaction of checking an account balance and knowing there is more than enough. You might hear someone congratulate you naturally, as though it is old news. You might feel the ease of making a generous decision without hesitation. These are implications, and implication is the language of the subconscious. The subconscious understands results, not processes. It does not need to know how you became wealthy. It only needs to accept that you are. When you watch yourself becoming rich, you are telling the mind it is still in the future. When you experience being rich now, you collapse time. The subconscious then begins to express that assumption in physical form. This is why short scenes are more powerful than elaborate ones. A single, repeated implication carries more weight than a long story filled with effort and explanation. The scene should end quickly, leaving you with a feeling of completion, not anticipation. Anticipation belongs to the old state. Completion belongs to the new. Entering the scene also requires you to abandon strain. If you are forcing images, tightening your body, or trying to make it work, you are still outside. Entry feels gentle. It feels like remembering something familiar, not constructing something new. The wealthy state does not feel dramatic. It feels normal, settled, and quietly assured. At first, the mind may resist. It may try to pull you back into observation or analysis. Do not fight it. Simply return to the feeling of presence. Ask yourself silently, if this were true right now, how would I feel? Then allow that feeling to arise without effort. Feeling is the doorway. Once you feel it, you are inside. This is what Neville Goddard meant when he said you must enter into the image. The image is not visual alone, it is sensory, emotional, and positional. You are not watching the wish fulfilled, you are living from it. When you succeed in entering the scene, even briefly, something shifts. The desire no longer feels distant, it feels claimed. You may notice a subtle relief, a quiet confidence, or a sense of finality. That is the sign of correct imagining. The act is done. From that point forward, your outer actions will change without conscious effort. You will speak differently, choose differently, and notice different opportunities. Not because you are trying to manifest, but because you have accepted a new identity. An identity is always expressed. The world does not respond to what you want. It responds to who you believe yourself to be. When you stop observing wealth and start inhabiting it, reality has no option but to follow. One of the most misunderstood aspects of manifestation is the role of feeling. Many believe they must generate excitement, intensity, or emotional highs to make an assumption work. This belief alone keeps the desire unstable. Excitement implies something extraordinary is happening, something rare, something not yet normal. But wealth, once truly assumed, does not feel extraordinary at all. It feels ordinary, it feels settled, it feels natural. The subconscious mind accepts what feels familiar. It resists what feels foreign or forced. This is why people can imagine winning money and still remain poor, because the feeling of wealth never becomes natural to them. They may feel thrilled in imagination, but thrill is temporary. The state you want is calm ownership, not emotional spikes. Ownership is quiet. Think about things you already possess. Your name, your home, your daily routines. None of these excite you, yet you never doubt them. You do not wake up hoping they are still yours. You simply assume they are. That assumption is powerful precisely because it is effortless. Wealth must be approached the same way. When you visualize correctly, the emotional tone should be one of ease and inner security. There is no rush, no tension, no urgency. The feeling is, of course. Of course I can afford this. Of course opportunities show up. Of course money flows when needed. This neutrality is not indifference, it is confidence without strain. If, during your imaginal act, you feel yourself trying to feel something, stop. Trying indicates separation. Let the scene be brief, and let the feeling arise naturally from the implication. A simple sense of relief is often enough. Relief signals that the problem has been solved. The subconscious recognizes relief as completion. The naturalness of having also changes how you relate to absence. When a bill arrives or an expense appears, you no longer react with fear. You respond with assumption. You assume resolution before seeing evidence. This inner response is far more important than any visualization session. It confirms which state you truly occupy. This is where many unknowingly undo their work. They imagine wealth in private, then panic in public. They visualize abundance at night, then complain in the morning. The subconscious does not listen to your techniques. It listens to your dominant feeling state. If wealth does not feel natural during the day, it has not yet been accepted. You must train yourself to return to the feeling of sufficiency throughout ordinary moments. When you make small choices, make them from calm assurance. When you speak about money, speak as someone who expects support. Not arrogance, not denial, just quiet certainty. This daily embodiment stabilizes the assumption. Feeling natural about having does not mean ignoring circumstances. It means refusing to let circumstances define you. You acknowledge facts without granting them authority. Authority belongs to consciousness alone. When you feel settled internally, circumstances lose their power to disturb you. This teaching, emphasized by Neville Goddard, is simple but demanding. You must become comfortable with the idea of being wealthy before wealth appears. Comfort is the gateway. Discomfort is resistance. Once wealth feels normal to you internally, you stop checking, forcing, and waiting. You move through life with a subtle expectation that things work out. And they do, not magically, but lawfully. The outer world adjusts to maintain consistency with your inner state. Calm assumption is the final seal. When having feels natural, creation is complete. After the imaginal act is complete, the most important work is no longer imagining. It is restraint. This is where discipline replaces effort. Many people believe manifestation fails during visualization, but in truth, it fails afterward. It fails when the mind returns to checking, controlling, and questioning what has already been assumed as done. When you release control, you are not giving up responsibility. You are acknowledging law. You have planted a seed in consciousness, and like any seed, it grows in darkness and silence. Digging it up to see if it is working only interrupts the process. The subconscious requires trust, not supervision. The urge to look for signs is the clearest indication that the assumption is not yet complete. Searching for evidence implies doubt. It says, I am not sure this is done. The subconscious accepts that message and delays expression. Faith is not emotional belief, it is behavioral alignment. If you truly believed something was finished, you would not keep checking on it. Release, therefore, is an inner posture. It is the decision to move on as though the matter has been settled. This does not mean forgetting the desire. It means removing emotional dependence on its arrival. When dependence ends, resistance ends. The law operates through what Neville Goddard called the bridge of incidents. Events unfold naturally, often in ways that appear unrelated at first. You may be led to conversations, ideas, or decisions that seem ordinary, yet each step is perfectly arranged. If you try to control how or when it happens, you step outside the bridge and delay completion. Releasing control also prevents strain. Strain is the emotional signal of effort, and effort implies lack. Wealth does not come through force, it comes through alignment. When you stop forcing outcomes, life moves more fluidly. Things begin to fall into place without struggle because you are no longer resisting the process. This is why patience is not passive waiting. Patience is inner stability. It is the refusal to emotionally react to temporary appearances. Circumstances may look unchanged, but you remain unmoved because you know the cause has already been set. You do not argue with shadows when you have already moved the light. A common mistake is to repeat the visualization compulsively out of fear that it was not enough. This repetition is not persistence, it is insecurity. Persistence is remaining faithful to the assumption in thought, feeling, and reaction. One correct imaginal act followed by sustained inner alignment is more powerful than hundreds of anxious repetitions. Letting go also means allowing life to surprise you. The manifestation may not arrive in the form you imagined, but it will always fulfill the assumption. Money may come through unexpected channels, Timing may feel sudden, and outcomes may exceed what you pictured. Control limits possibility, release expands it. Your role after imagining is simple: live normally but differently. Think differently. React differently. Choose differently. Not with tension, but with trust. You are no longer trying to make something happen. You are cooperating with something already in motion. When doubt arises, do not fight it. Simply return to the knowing that the act is done. Doubt fades when it is not fed with attention. Confidence is quiet, it does not argue. This stage separates those who understand the law from those who merely hear it. Anyone can imagine. Few can release. But release is the final act of faith. When you let go, you allow the unseen to become seen. And when you stop interfering, creation completes itself. True persistence has nothing to do with repeating techniques or constantly returning to the imaginal scene. Persistence is not mechanical, it is existential. It is the decision to remain loyal to a new identity, even when the outer world has not yet caught up. This is where most people misunderstand the law. They persist in methods, but they abandon the state. Methods do nothing without identity. To persist correctly means you no longer ask, "Is it working?" That question belongs to the old self. The new self does not monitor results because results are assumed. Instead, persistence shows up in how you think, how you choose, and how you interpret daily events. You are not acting wealthy to get money. You are acting naturally because that is who you now believe yourself to be. Identity is revealed most clearly in reaction. When something unexpected happens, how do you respond internally? Do you panic, complain, or collapse into old assumptions? Or do you pause, assume resolution, and move forward calmly? These moments are where persistence is proven. The state you return to under pressure is the state you truly occupy. A person who has assumed wealth does not live in fantasy. They live in quiet authority. They expect solutions. They assume access. They make decisions without desperation. Even when challenges arise, they interpret them differently. Obstacles become temporary adjustments, not confirmations of failure. This interpretation keeps the assumption intact. Persisting in identity also means cleaning up inner dialogue. The way you speak to yourself about money, opportunity, and self-worth must align with the state you have chosen. You cannot repeatedly declare yourself abundant while internally rehearsing stories of limitation. The subconscious listens to your most frequent conversations, not your occasional affirmations. This does not mean suppressing negative thoughts through force. It means replacing them through assumption. When an old thought arises, you do not wrestle with it. You simply return to the position of the one who already has. That no longer applies to me becomes your silent response. Over time, the old voice weakens through neglect. Persistence also requires patience with the bridge of events. Life may rearrange itself in ways that feel indirect or even uncomfortable at first. Jobs may end, routines may shift, relationships may change. These are not setbacks, they are reconfigurations. The state you have assumed must express itself fully, and sometimes that requires clearing space. This is why trust is inseparable from persistence. If you lose trust when appearances shift, you fall back into the old identity. But if you remain grounded, you allow the process to complete. The wealthy state does not fear change. It understands that movement is evidence of alignment. As Neville Goddard emphasized, you persist not by willpower, but by faithfulness to assumption. You walk as though it is already true. You plan lightly. You expect cooperation. You stop dramatizing delay. Delay is only a lack of inner finality. Over time, persistence becomes effortless. The new identity stabilizes. You no longer have to remind yourself. You simply are. And when identity stabilizes, manifestation accelerates. The outer world must conform because it cannot contradict a dominant self-concept. This is the final point many never reach. They touch the state briefly, then retreat when nothing changes immediately. But the one who persists does not retreat. They remain. They live from the end. And life, having no alternative, rearranges itself to confirm their assumption. When you persist in identity, you do not chase wealth. Wealth finds you because you have become recognizable to it.